G. Critchman, I think I got that right, said, "You have a great channel and you should really have more subscribers." Yeah, man, we
I
know.
agree.
we agree with that.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Unsolved. I'm Miles Reef. I'm here as always with my buddy Sean Cahill. This is the place where we tackle the stories that the TV networks won't touch. Guys, it's Monday. We're dropping a comment reaction video for you guys. You guys had a lot to say about our Liam Toman update. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into some other cases as well. Sean, before we dive into it, any channel business we need to get into?
Maybe not publicly, but we'll tell you guys there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as we grow this channel. It looks like we are potentially going to be bringing in some sponsors for the first time ever, which is really cool for us. You guys are probably used to seeing just normal YouTube ads. We may wind up removing those and going with more host direct stuff with some products that we actually think are cool. Hopefully you won't see us, dressed as dogs eating Alpo, like as the old joke goes, right? But there is some cool stuff coming that way that will hopefully help support this mission that we have and keep this thing going. Other than that, the Toman family approached us a week or two ago and had some updates they wanted to share with the channel. So, of course, Miles and I were happy to have them on. If you haven't seen that video yet, it was Friday's video. You can go find that on our channel. And yeah, I think we'll start off maybe with some comments about that and what they had to say. And then we'll move into some comments kind of all across the board, going way back to some of our first videos ever, because it's interesting to see, we've mentioned this before, but as the library grows, people are commenting on things we've done almost a year ago at this point, which is really fun, So we want to always go back and engage with those folks as well. Just because we posted it a while ago, somebody, it could be their first day with it today. So that's it, really.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, let's get into it. So first comment is, as Sean said, on that Toman family update that we got from them. FP1131 says, Quebecer here. I hope I'm saying that right. Quebec here? Quebecer here. iPhone shut down. Mine always have when it's that cold outside, unless you keep it inside your coat and close to you to warm it with your body heat. The phones will shut down and only restart when they warm up enough. Pocket on the outside of your coat or pants won't keep it warm enough, in my experience. This fact sticks out for me. I wonder if this has been looked into. Did the phone ping the tower only once? Tremblant isn't really a place where he could have gotten lost, and even if he had, they would have found him by now. This sounds like foul play to me. That's interesting because I felt like as I was reading this comment from FP that they were kind of going towards natural circumstances based on the, focusing on the temperature and iPhone's reactions to temperatures. But then at the end, they point out that, excuse me, guys, they point out that Tremblant isn't really a place where he could have gotten lost. And even if he had, they would have been found him by now, which I agree with. And it sounds like foul play, which I think, Sean and I are on the same page on this one, as is the family. So I don't know. What do you think, Sean?
I mean, yeah, I definitely lean that way. To answer your question about the cell tower ping, I do believe it was just one communication that they were really focused on that took place the next day. Because again, like Liam's phone wasn't active, he wasn't texting, he wasn't using the internet. So occasionally these phones just do kind of a handshake check-in with towers, is my understanding. Keep in mind, Miles and I are not digital forensic experts. We've just gleaned this information telling these stories over and over again where cell phones come into play. So yeah, I think that the really big important one was the next day. And as far as I know, that's the only one. And after that, there's been no more communication.
Yeah. But what we
As
do know from talking to the family, sorry, not to cut you off, but
That's
we
fine.
might have been going the same place. What we do know from talking to the family is there is new digital information that's being looked at. That's part of what that update was, and we don't know exactly what that means, but I would imagine it has to do with social media and possible other forms of communication. So the phone may
Yeah.
have been working.
Yeah, I think the traditional ping is what this was talking about. And what we're learning from the family is that there are other types of miniature pings that take place between your other apps that are kind of running in the background that are not necessarily like your cellular service pinging the tower to say, hey, AT&T or Verizon, here's the phone. So again, now we're getting a little bit out of our depth, but that's what we're told. There's more to be uncovered there forensically. So we're going to kind of have to
Right.
stand by and see.
But I think you're right. Like that's basically what it is. It's not necessarily pings per se as much as it is being able to tell that apps were being used because they were running, and that that means that the phone was in use.
Hmm.
So hopefully more to come.
Yeah.
Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. Sean, do you want to take this next one? Also about Liam Toman update.
Yeah, and it looks like it kind of ties in, so this might be a good follow-up. So the Idea Place says it's odd that the more technology we have that should make solving these crimes easier and easier, the more crimes aren't solved. Cell phones, cameras, etc. It's curious that this is the case. 50% of murders are never solved. This is unacceptable. Well, yeah, we definitely agree. It's crazy to us that half of the murders, at least in the United States, I don't know about Canada, but in the United States, half of murders go unsolved, which is mind-blowing because we don't like to think that half of, the people who murder another human being are walking around right now getting away with it. But it is the truth. And it is a little puzzling that in the era where we're all on camera, our phones track us, our computers track us, our credit cards, it's very hard to fathom how anybody could get away with a crime. And sometimes, what we've learned, at least covering these stories, is that people may be on the police's radar as a very possible suspect, but there's missing proof, right? So even if their phone puts them there, there's suspicious text messages and financial transactions. Sometimes it's still not enough, even having that information. And that's just one scenario. But yeah, overall, I would agree with you. You think that the exchange we make as a society for having all of this, voluntary surveillance that we sign up for when we carry phones around and own computers, you would hope that like some security would come from it, but sometimes it doesn't, which is scary.
Well, I think there's a couple of things at play here, right? There's the technology has moved faster than people. I'm not saying it's to say that the ability is probably there, the information's there, but there's so much of it and there's so many different ways of getting into it that certainly like public, people like the cops, they're not necessarily trained. They don't have the resources to really get into it, which is why the Tomans have brought in a, outside company to help them with this because, there are people who are getting ahead of all this digital forensic stuff. But it's, local cops don't always have the resources. And I think, as I said, the technology has moved faster than law enforcement has. So we're still catching up. I think the other thing, and certainly this is true in the United States, is, as Sean pointed out, I don't really, I know Canada, but I don't know the laws in Canada as well as I do in the US. There's a lot of privacy stuff at play, so you always have this thing where you're kind of playing between, you know, protecting people's private communication and having access through investigation, First Amendment stuff. There's a lot of play there, right? So
Yeah.
that's why there has to be subpoenas to get to people's phones and everything else.
It's funny. I was listening to another podcast recently that was about this. It wasn't a true crime podcast, but it was just talking about how it's kind of ironic in today's world that the government is actually one of the only entities that doesn't get access to every piece of information about you. They're the ones that need warrants and subpoenas and probable cause to get some of this stuff, whereas your cell phone provider, your internet provider, they know everything. You
Right.
basically
The
sign that
the
contract.
t-shirt company that you
Yeah.
clicked on an ad on Instagram might
Yes.
have easier access to your biometric data than the
Yes.
cops would if you were missing and they needed to investigate. And
And
it's
we
a
all
very
sign
good
up
point.
for it, when we
Yeah.
click these long things that you have to scroll all the way down through like 50 pages of gibberish just to say, I agree and start using the app or the service. That's the part that, you're volunteering this stuff to them. But then for sometimes law enforcement to get that information from the company, it's not just as simple as a quick email. They need to
Yeah.
go through a process. So yeah, the fact that we have all this tech and everything spying on us doesn't always necessarily translate over to the cops have it. It's a different,
Yeah.
they have to go through stuff. So it is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it's really wild. I as you guys, our regular viewers know, I've been spending a lot of time in London working on a show there, a TV show that I've been producing, and that's my background keeps changing, and Sean and I are always in different time zones over the last few months. But it's interesting because I had my wife there with me for a couple of months, and she was amazed by being in this like extremely busy, crowded urban environment, how safe she felt in London, and because she spent, a lot of time in New York. We lived in Los Angeles for many, many years, and she never felt as safe there as she did in London. And then she was talking to someone before we left about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's because there's CCTV cameras everywhere, and everything's being watched. And if anything happens, the cops are there in a second. Plus, they have records of everybody because everything's documented. So, when you get on the tube, as they call it, or the subway in London, everyone's aware at this point that whatever they're doing is being documented. So they're all on their best behavior. So everyone's kind of like buttoned up. There's also cultural stuff at play. Obviously, I know we have a lot of UK viewers and we love you guys, and I'm probably going to get hit for this. But I guess my point is that, if you give up a certain amount of help me out here, Sean. The United States is crazy. When I got back to the States after spending 2.5 months in the UK, and I stepped off the plane, and I was just like, wow, I forgot. Like, America is just huge and wild, and it's
Yeah.
the Wild West, and we have this crazy thing called the Constitution, and it puts freedom over everything. And because of that, as Sean said, for a cop to even investigate certain things, you have to go through so many steps. Whereas, like in the marketplace, you just click a box and they're like, great, now we have access to all your stuff. But if the cops want to go to that company and get it, they have to get a warrant and a subpoena and everything else, right? Whereas in other countries, there isn't necessarily the same protections. So the cops might have more freedom to move, and you might be more protected, and it might be a safer place. I'm not making a political statement here. I don't know what the answer is. I have to tell you, I had a great time in London. It was awesome. I love the country. But the fact that my wife felt so safe in such a busy urban environment, that was amazing. Someone coming from where I grew up in New York City, where it was like a mess, when I was a kid, to put it mildly. It was really cool to be able to like have the benefits of being in a city, but also feel like, hey, nothing crazy is going to pop off at any minute. Not to say that, I'm sure stuff happens in London, but it was this revelation to my wife when she found out about like the camera system that's been put in place over the last couple of decades, and how the police are basically just like watching everything that happens. And we just don't have that. And I think that's just one example of, First Amendment protections versus not having those. And,
Yeah, it's a different social contract. It's an interesting contrast. I guess the last thing I wanted to say about this comment, which clearly is a good one because it's getting a lot of mileage out of us, is the idea that like I've interviewed in my career a lot of older or retired detectives who have talked about the fact that, they talk to younger guys and they try to drill into them, like, don't become over reliant on this cell phone stuff and these camera thing. Because, like, if you train yourself to only solve crimes by looking at spreadsheets of cell phone data, you're going to forget some of the old school, really effective methods of tracking down missing people, solving homicides using more like social interaction or physical clues, or all the things that cops have relied on for decades, up until this incredible cheat code came along that is the cell phone that tracks everywhere you go and everyone you talk to. I mean, it is an amazing tool, but when you run out of leads there, or it's not available, or for whatever reason, like, you need to have those skills to fall back on and do it the old fashioned way. And I've always found that to be really interesting. Like, obviously, I'm not a detective myself. I've just spoken to a lot of them at length for hours and hours, hearing about their jobs and their thoughts on their jobs. And that's something I've heard more than once. You probably have too, Miles. I mean, I would imagine someone
oh
said something.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think like, well, this guy's just like holding on to the past, and he's an older dude and he's retired and he doesn't want to embrace it. But then that certain cases get solved because someone's out there and they have the street smarts to talk to the right people to understand like what was
Yeah.
really going on in someone's life, to be able to read between the lines when you're interviewing the family and the friends, and like really be able to profile someone, which is kind of a dirty word in some places. But I'm not talking about like looking at someone on the street and assuming they're doing something wrong. I'm talking about building a profile on a victim, building a profile on a suspect. That's a skill set that these guys have, and has nothing to do with technology. It's really psychology and
Yeah.
sociology, and just really understanding people and what motivates us. And I think a good cop has to have that stuff. Absolutely. Anyway, we got one more comment in the tech, and I know we've kind of beaten this to death, but it's KG, and KG's got to get their flowers. So KG Penguin, thank you for the comment as always. It's wonderful they had so much support, and hopefully there will be more good news in Liam's case. Technology can be a powerful tool in crime solving. Yeah, I think it can be, absolutely. But as Sean was just saying, I don't think it's the only tool. And without those people going out there and searching and hitting the bricks and trying to figure out who may have seen what, I don't think anything would ever get solved.
Well said. Um, you want to take the next one or shall I?
I can take it. Oh, you're giving it to me because it's a Brit. Uh,
That's just because KG's was kind of so short. I didn't want to rob you of
right,
your.
right, right. Love Brit TV. I love Brit TV.
As do I.
Um, Dear Toman family, I hope and pray you get some news soon. It must be devastating. My son went missing for 2 years many moons ago. It was heart-wrenching living daily, not knowing. This was his choice, not the same, but still glad there's so much help there for you. I still think those two guys know something, and I still think that white car is suspicious. Did they find out more about the car? I feel Liam is not in that area, just my own gut feeling. Can you get a body language expert to look at the two guys and the one in the bar talking with Liam to give an opinion? Happy there are positive changes at the resort at least. They owe you that after their shameful first response. Yeah, I agree with that last part. The way that the resort reacted was definitely kind of like knee jerk and just trying to cover themselves as
Hmm.
opposed to just trying to help. And they ended up in hot water, which just shows you like do the right thing from the beginning and you'll end up in a better place, even if you're accepting some blame for something, right? There's an interesting point about the body language expert. I don't know if you're going to find out much from those two guys standing out there in the snow. You know, it's grainy imagery, and I just don't know that that's going to get you anywhere. We kind of know what happened in the bar. You know, the guy's admitted it himself,
Hmm.
and it's he's been interviewed multiple times, and we there's witnesses. I mean, we know there was this negative interaction that happened with Liam, so I don't think you have to analyze it. I agree that I don't think Liam's like right there. I don't think that he just disappeared around the resort. And from, if you've watched Brit TV, if you've watched our update with the family, you'll see that they are looking at other areas now, and those areas do include both sort of like woodland, outdoor spaces as well as, little towns where people live. So they are spreading out, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. I think the one thing I'll jump in because you covered that pretty well. But yeah, I think that Liam's not there, and I think that that's one of the biggest clues for me that I don't believe this was an accident. Because for Liam not to be there and to get outside of this little resort area to somewhere else kind of requires someone helping him do it, right? Because his car didn't move. It's hard to imagine at that time of night him walking that far on foot in that weather. And again, this area has been searched and it continues to be searched. I mean, they just did a search a week or two ago again. So that to me says, did he get in a car with somebody? Did something happen to him? And then they moved Liam either alive or incapacitated or otherwise somewhere else. I think the fact that his wallet was there and he's not, says a lot to me along those lines. Something
Yeah,
happened that separated him from a very important item that he kept in his zipped pocket, and his person went somewhere else. So, yeah.
yeah,
Thank you for the comment.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, and hopefully you keep watching. We appreciate it.
Let's move on
Let's.
to another case. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You took the words out of my mouth.
I took the words right out of my mouth. Hopefully, you don't get a copyright hit for that. Andrea,
You never know with YouTube.
you never know. So let's talk about Andrea Knabel. We got a couple comments on her story. That was the last case we covered. Let's look at this. James Lewis says, I don't want to sound horrible because it's such an awful case, and listening to her dad talk was heartbreaking. He comes across as such a lovely bloke. It's obvious the poor girl was hooked on meth, and I don't understand why there is such reticence from her family to admit it. It seems everyone is skirting around it to me. I really hope her family gets some answers. Yeah, This is an interesting comment, and I kind of thought this was a good one to read because a lot of people have said something more or less like this. And I do think you're right. It's obvious that Andrea was having some drug issues. I mean, her sister and her dad both sort of tacitly acknowledged that. I think for them, it was important to focus on the missing persons case, and they wanted to do what they could to direct the attention away from what they perceived as a negative patch of Andrea's life that was very recent and did not in any way really define who she had been up until, again, a very recent time. But I also agree with you that I think it's really difficult to remove that element from this story. So much of the reason she was out at night, the reason she was having these arguments with her family, the reasons her life wasn't in a good place kind of goes back to this. And so it is like, to sort of skirt that, I understand where the family's coming from, but I also understand the viewers wondering, like, why can't we just come out and say this? I guess for Miles and I, we try to follow the lead of our guests, and we also know that you guys aren't stupid, and you're going to be able to read between the lines and understand exactly, what's going on here, like you did, James. There's issues, it's obvious, and the family doesn't want to talk about it, probably not because they're hiding anything, as far as, like they know what happened to her and they don't want to say. I think they're just trying to look out for the reputation of somebody who they love really deeply. And there's a certain element of shame maybe around this, just to call it out. And you have to remember too, she has two children that are still alive and looking for their mother. And when the conversation becomes less about that and more about her drug problems, I think they might be worried that that's going to affect those kids. And I'm not saying that that's the right decision or the wrong decision. There's a strong argument to be made to just lay all the cards on the table. If you want people to help, give them all the information and don't hide anything. But think about your own family. I mean, is that what we would all do? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think Miles and I just tried to meet them where they were willing to go, right? I mean, what do you think, Miles?
Well, I feel like if you go back and I would imagine James has watched the interview with Andrew's dad. He talks about these places that he had to go to try to search for her and, sort of, putting himself in jeopardy. And, look, I don't think he has to come out and say she was smoking, this certain type of drug for us to know what was going on in her life. It's hard enough for the guy to come on here and put it out there. So I don't fault anybody for that. I understand it. I don't think anyone's trying to hide anything. I think it's probably really hard to just say it. Honestly, especially knowing that as they've told us, as you guys have seen in the interviews, like they all seem to think that it's her dallying in this world and this world of substances and the danger that was around that led to her whatever happened to her. So that's got to really really sting. So it's got to be hard to talk about. It's interesting what you said about the kids though, because there's a response to James
Mm.
Lewis's comment from Jinja Jesus, which is, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or uh, Inja
I think
Jesus.
I think you are.
Um, Anyway, it's a great name. And they say, I thought it's weird too, but I was wondering if it has something to do with her kids. Don't know their ages, but they have to be pretty young still. Probably don't want to go around in public saying their mom was a crazy drug addict outright. Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. Part of it's that, Andrea did come to this lifestyle sort of later in life, like in her 30s, after like a job loss, and she was kind of you know, having a hard time. And, most of us who have gone through that kind of stuff go through it when we're young, we get it out of our system, and then we move on and build our life, right? So it's a tough one, man. It's really tough. And yeah, there's kids involved.
It is, and it's just interesting because when people like the Knable family are put in this position where they're kind of like now they have to interface with the media, right? These are not people who are media professionals, to my knowledge. They don't work in that field. They have no experience being on TV up until this. And now suddenly they're on long form podcasts and talking to the news. And I think that they're doing what they can to sort of present the narrative that they believe will be the most helpful, right? And this is what they're putting forward. And again, that's why Miles and I are respecting it. Um, but whether or not it is the most effective or what an expert would recommend, I don't know. I totally see why some people are wondering why they're not talking about that element of the story more. But it is what it is. People
Yeah.
people are going to do what they're going to do, and that's
Yeah.
that's
I
what
mean,
it
look,
is.
I'm not going to criticize Andrew's family or any of our participants who come on here willing to talk about stuff. I will say the only thing that I could see being more explicit, what it would change is it would shift the public fascination away possibly from the sister and the brother-in-law. Like there's so many people that are focused on that aspect of the story,
Yeah,
and really doesn't seem like the family believes that's has anything to do with anything.
right.
And just putting it out there like, hey, there were these drug dealers and et cetera, whatever that might be, and being a little more forward with that might shift it away a little bit in the public perception, that's all.
Yeah,
Um,
and to their credit, before we move on, I'll say that I don't really think that it's fair to characterize the Knables as dodging this issue. I think they acknowledged it. I think it's more of where they chose to focus more of our time, and in
yeah.
every interview they do,
Well, and
it's more
it's a
about that.
level of explicitness, right? And I think, again, that's what I was saying, like the trauma and like having to talk about it. It's tough, So again, I'm not, I can't judge anyone in that situation.
Absolutely. And it may be also that they didn't really know that much about it, which, does happen in these
Does seem
situations.
that's the case.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can know something is taking place without having all the details. And I did kind of get the sense that there was some of that to this story with them. They were
Yes.
concerned about her, they worried about the people she's around, but her day-to-day problems, I don't think were, necessarily in great detail. All right, let's move on. So Liz Barraza, this one comes up a lot, and I'm always happy to see it,
Yeah.
especially
And as you guys know, because we posted on our channel that Liz's dad, Bob Nelly, passed away, and after a really tough fight with cancer. So it's nice that people are still commenting on the story and still talking about Liz.
Absolutely, yes. So Cindy says, well, I was absolutely certain it was Sergio until this interview. This is on our interview with Michael Ritchie, the detective.
Hmm.
Now I think it's someone hired by Oscar, which is Sergio's dad. He needed the life insurance that would come to Sergio, and he was sure that his son would lend him money. I found this interesting because so many people think it was Sergio that for somebody to come in and say, not directly, but maybe because somebody was sort of trying to manipulate Sergio's situation to benefit themselves, that's an interesting theory. I do think we've heard it before, right? Because I know Oscar had some trouble. There was a lot of talk about, problems with his current wife and money issues he was having, not being able to pay his employees and having to borrow money from his son. You could see how that would make sense. And I do think it's not lost on Sergeant Michael Ritchie. I'm sure, I know he's met with Oscar. I know he's examined those relationships really
Yeah.
closely. What he really knows
He
about
definitely
it,
found Oscar to be an interesting character. I will
yeah,
say.
yeah. Well, I'll say too, Sergeant Ritchie's a pretty clever guy, and what he really knows or suspects there is anybody's guess. I think obviously this is an unsolved case, and everybody and their dog is still on the table, right, until charges are filed against somebody. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't say Oscar is in the clear, but we don't know. It's a good theory.
Or yeah, and then other people believe that Oscar pressured his son, and that they were in cahoots.
Hmm.
So I'd say one doesn't get rid of the other. As you guys know, those of you who've been with us for a long time, we have tried to get Sergio to speak with us. We have messaged him several times. We've gone through other people to get messages to him to try to get him to sit down for an interview, but it doesn't seem like he really wants to deal with this anymore, which is understandable. I'm going to read a comment now about Ryan Stuka, another young man who went missing in Canada. This comment is from Cindy. Cindy MQ6PL says, my very first episode of your channel, and I'm hooked. Oh, wow. Thank you. We'll try to keep delivering for you, Cindy. Subscribed. I'm Canadian, and I remember this story. I think Ryan was very messed up on alcohol and drugs, and he did wander into the woods. Hypothermia claimed him, I fear. My second theory is that Get in the effing car was very real, and Ryan was kidnapped and driven far away to parts unknown, where he was tragically ended. I feel so sorry for this young man and his family and friends. Well, Cindy, thank you for the comment. Thank you for the subscription. And thank you for the empathy towards Ryan's family and friends. Look, I think that you just laid out the two main theories in the case, right? That he either did wander off and just for some reason they haven't been able to find any trace of his remains, or that something transpired that night that led to somebody having some gripe with him that led to a situation where he was taken somewhere else and something horrible happened to him. I think that those are the two main thoughts on Ryan's disappearance, Sean, right?
They are, and this is why this one is so incredibly frustrating and baffling to me because, from what we know about Ryan's night, there just wasn't any problem with anybody. I know that there's local rumors about all kinds of crazy stuff that we've seen, and all of it to me always felt like things that people kind of invented or sort of came up with after the fact, like, oh, he was in deep with some really dangerous drug dealers. And there's just no evidence of that stuff. Everybody that was with him that night said he had a great time. He was with his friends. He was a block from his house when he disappeared. I mean, a block maybe as the crow flies. The problem is to actually walk to the house, he had to go through some very strange, circuitous roadways and stuff, which is where he likely disappeared. Um, but then the idea is like why if it wasn't foul play, would he accidentally disappear walking home in a place that he knew pretty well and it's not that far of a walk, even though it was a little bit roundabout. It was like 15-minute walk, I think. I'm pulling that off the top of my head, but very, very quick. So what could have happened to him? I think you got the only two options here. Either he was
Pretty much.
really confused and we still haven't figured out where he is in the woods there, or there was some sort of a conflict, maybe even something that happened after he left that house that was just a random encounter in the middle of the night and
Yeah.
somebody's done something, which is
Yeah.
kind of where I lean, just again because of the heavy amount of searching that's been done.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean,
Yeah.
you just hit my point, which is that the amount of searching that's gone on, how fast they got into it, and that area being what it is, it's hard for me to believe that no trace of him has ever been found. I mean, I believe that no trace of him has ever been found. It's hard for me to believe that he's out there somewhere in those woods. And like how far could he have gotten that night, right? So yeah, I tend to lean the other way.
And the thing is too, I mean, I don't want to be too graphic here, so I guess content warning, but with a human body in the woods or just in a nature area, scavengers come, right? There'll be birds overhead, there'll be scavengers on the ground. They will pull things out, scatter them. You would think that over the years, somebody would have come across something, whether it was an article of clothing or bones or something like that, if Ryan was in walking distance from this neighborhood. So, because of the searches and because of just that, never having anything reveal itself, I'm really kind of the mind that somebody knows what happened to him and there was some kind of foul play. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Uh,
Oh, this next one that we've got here is interesting. You want to take this, Sean?
I would love to take this one. So this is for the Missy Beavers case. I feel like once every week in these comment reaction videos, you and I have to come and like relitigate this point, and it's actually kind of like a meme now for me, and I enjoy doing it every week. So,
Well,
Han-
I like the
yeah,
fact that every now and then we got a negative comment.
it's the best.
It can't all be you guys are great and we care about this family.
Yeah, no. So let's get into it. So Ham Hands Bill is talking about the Missy Beavers suspect, whether or not this is a burglar or like a burglary gone wrong or murder. And Ham Hands says, spoken by people who have never investigated a commercial burglar or handled any real criminal investigation. Got us. Yeah, you're right. We have never handled a commercial burglary investigation or a residential burglary investigation. All I can go back to here is that, you know, I professionally have interviewed detectives for many, many years now about many, many different kinds of cases. And it's not really my opinion that I'm applying to this case. It's the filtered opinion of so many law enforcement professionals who look into murders, burglaries, and other crimes And I've just heard over and over and over again what a burglary typically looks like, whether it's commercial or residential. There are some differences, but there's a lot of similarities. And I've never heard one that looks like this on camera, as far as just the person in a strange costume taking their time and stealing nothing despite being there for a very long time.
Opening
Burglars,
doors,
yeah,
smashing things,
just,
just walking
kind of
around,
futzing around, as
wearing
my
an
mom would
ill-fitting,
say.
weird SWAT outfit.
And look, there's a first time for everything, right, Miles? It's
Yep,
possible that
yep.
this is the outlier case where we do have a kind of a lazy burglar who likes to cosplay
Well,
on the job.
I think Ham is saying that there's a lot of those, and we just don't recognize that because we haven't done any real investigations into commercial burglaries or criminal investigations before.
Yeah, it
And
could
then
be
if
that
we
if
did, we would see more and more people in ill-fitting SWAT uniforms randomly smashing cabinets and opening doors and walking away without even going into the rooms. But
walking
hey,
away with no take. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
and then
yeah.
brutally murdering someone.
So
Uh,
I think you're right, Ham Hands. We have never officially had that job, but we're not coming at it from a completely ignorant place. Like my
yep.
take on that is coming from actually a pretty, educated point of view, because I've talked to people who do that for a living, and I think all of them are more or less of the mind that this is not what burglary looks like typically.
I know that there's some other folks in our space on YouTube who have had the other opinion on this. Do you think Ham Hands might be working for one of them?
Possibly. I would be interested to know, Ham Hands, if you are a law enforcement professional, if you have ever investigated a commercial burglary, because if so, maybe we need to come on here and like eat a shoe or something like
I
that.
mean, let's do it.
Yep.
Ham Hands, we will get on camera with you. If you are an ex-cop, let's talk. Tell us what we got wrong. Totally serious.
All right. Let's look at the next case here.
Jennifer Kesse. Oh, we are going back, man. Wow, we are getting a lot of comments, guys, on all kinds of cases here. Bojano Q50, I don't know why I read that with that accent, says, I follow this case and it is heartbreaking. The world got to know this beautiful family for the sad reason, but I think they get so much love and prayers that I am sure they will get answers. And I have to say that I listened to many interviews with the Kesse family, but on this podcast is the first time I felt that they were really heard. You want to listen to them and give them all the time in the world. You don't rush them, respect them. You don't ask them questions that will lead to more views. I'm kind of happy that they have a place where they can be seen and heard. You are doing amazing work. We'll follow you and hope you will share good news for this family soon. Wow. I didn't even know this comment was in here. This is really, really nice, Sean. That is really, really gratifying. And, there's not a lot keeping us going right now, guys, other than ourselves, and the belief in what we're doing. And, obviously the work, like actually like giving these families a platform, the fact that people keep wanting to talk to us. So I guess
Mhm.
what I'm saying is we're really not making any money off of this right now. So, having someone say something like that means a lot. It's very gratifying. Thank you, Bojana.
A fine palate cleanser after Ham Hand's professional criticism. Yeah, thank you so much,
Well, he
Bo.
didn't say Ham Hands. I don't know why I'm assuming Ham Hands is a man, but and that
Well,
Bojan
it's
is a
Ham Hand's
woman.
Bill.
Oh, it is. Oh, never
Yeah.
mind, Bill. Uh, but he didn't say that we weren't good interviewers and that we didn't have empathy for victims. He just said that we don't know anything.
He
Anyway,
made a very correct guess about our resumes. We have never had
right,
that job.
right, right.
Well, thank you so much, Bohanna. We really appreciate that sweet comment. Okay, so there's a couple here that are just kind of general, not really tied to any case in particular, but I thought they might be worth talking about. So, G. Critchman, I think I got that right, said, "You have a great channel and you should really have more subscribers." Yeah, man, we
I
know.
agree.
We agree with that. Yes, this might be a good call to action moment. Let's put up the graphic. Tell your dad, tell your mailman, tell your friends. If you guys like what we're doing here and you think that we should grow and that other people who might like this, just let them know. We're doing
Yeah.
this all as organically as possible. Miles and I don't have some huge company behind us. Promoting us and booking us on other shows and doing all the other things that would probably get us more subscribers more quickly. We're just making content and putting it out and doing what we can from our small corner of the world to try to amplify it in whatever way we can with the limited resources available to us, which is why, you know, we encourage people to check out the membership and all that other stuff. Every
Yeah,
little bit
but we are
counts.
working on it. We
Yeah,
are we do have, as Sean hinted at the beginning of this little check-in, this comment react, we do have some things in the works where we are trying to expand the subscriber base a little bit. We have some brand sponsorships that are actually coming in. So you're going to see us, sort of like, hawking, VPNs and stuff to you guys. And we're going to promise that we're going to keep it within the world of what we do. And we're not going to be trying to get you to buy like weird t-shirts, or, well, we might make True Crime Unsolved t-shirts someday. I don't know
yeah.
what I'm
There will
saying.
be no crypto, like,
Yeah,
True Crime
the weird.
Unsolved coin is not
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, unsolved coin. That's great.
Unsolved coin, yeah. Hey, maybe that is a way to get
Yeah.
some support coming in.
But we're trying, we're taking some moves. We're making some moves to try and grow the channel, make it a little bigger, get more people in the mix. So thank you for that, and thanks for sticking with us, and all the new people that we're seeing who are subscribing. It's great. Um,
Absolutely.
So, oh, and G. Critchman also said, "Can
Oh,
you please do a show on the sad, horrible, unsolved Nancy Guthrie case?" So this is interesting
hmm.
because this is something that Sean and I have been talking about. Um, and, obviously, our bread and butter here is doing these deep dives into these cases where we have access and we actually can interview the family members and sometimes the cops and private investigators and all that. Um, and that's always going to be, the center of our channel. But we have been playing with the idea of doing some standalone case breakdowns about some really, really interesting cases that are out there, and so, perhaps even ones that are really well known, like the Nancy Guthrie case. We haven't done that because we really wanted to kind of create our own identity in a very, very crowded space. And there's a lot of people who do that stuff. They just kind of like put their spin on it or have an opinion, but they talk about a case that's very well known. We haven't really taken that approach, but we are, like I said, we're sort of prepping some standalone case breakdowns, but we've really been focusing on cases that aren't that well known. Again, there's sort of unsolved cases that we feel are interesting. But if you guys think that we should do some more well-known ones, and if you'd like to see us do that and sort of hear our opinion on that stuff, why don't you let us know? Like, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think, and let us know what you think about this idea of doing some standalone case breakdowns in general. Because obviously we value you guys. This channel's always been about us sort of getting into the comments and having reacting in real time to the feedback that we get from you. So yeah, give us an opinion.
Yeah, and I think, my thought on why we might want to do something like that is really that anything that sort of amplifies the reach of the channel is good for the stories that need the amplification, right? Like the Nancy Guthrie story doesn't need Miles and I weighing in. That is a very famous, prominent, ongoing case that most of us have probably heard of. But what us talking about it, I guess the only positive thing I could see would be maybe bringing eyeballs to our channel that would then bounce off to the Andrea Knable case or the Liam Toman case or some of these other families who are not on TV every day like Nancy Guthrie's case is, might benefit in some way from us bringing in people that way. So I could see that. Otherwise,
Good,
I have
good
to be,
point. It's a good
yeah.
point. It's almost like we're doing a promo by doing those cases.
Well, George Clooney, I think, said about, his movie career, like you do one for the studios and then they let you do one for you, and like the one you do for you probably isn't going to be as successful because it's going to be artsy or whatever.
Yeah, up
But
in the air.
when
Right.
you do exactly, but when you do the big blockbusters, you bring in more people who might be interested in your side
Right.
project. So to use sort of a weird comparison, it could be a little bit like that. I think that the core of our DNA is always going to be working with real families who are looking for more public attention. And I would never really want to veer too far away from that. But like I said, if dipping a toe into some of these more famous cases, is something you guys might want to see, then let us know. And we're certainly happy to take a look at doing so if it's something that you guys would be curious about.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for the week. That's a pretty good one. Thank you guys so much for all of your comments as usual. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. At the very least, maybe like this video if you enjoyed it. And if you're super passionate, check out our membership. It's $4.99 a month. It goes a long way towards supporting the time and effort that Miles and I put into making these videos, working with these families, doing everything it takes to make this channel happen, which is, as we've learned over the last couple of years, quite a bit more than we thought it was going to be. It's a good amount of work, but we do sincerely enjoy it, and we want to keep doing it. So every little bit helps, and that's my pitch. Even a thumbs up, even a comment, that's enough.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.